Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Stroke Warrior Radio's um, interviews where recovery finds its voice. I'm your host, Ralph Cortese, and my guest today is Kelly Campbell. Hi, Kelly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, better
Oh,
than I have been.
great.
So, if you listened to our first conversation with Kelly, you heard her survivor story. Today, we're moving beyond the stroke itself and talking about what happens after survival. Um, how our identity changes, how purpose evolves, and how the life becomes meaningful again, or how you can help make it become meaningful. Kelly, if someone met you today and who knew nothing about your stroke, how would you describe the person you've become?
I think I have to answer that one backwards. I think
Good.
I'd have to say to the people that I know today, I will tell them, you would not have liked me before my stroke. You would not have liked the person I was. Uh,
Really?
I really, really, you wouldn't. I was very bossy, very me oriented, very sun rose and set for me. And I had no patience. People said I didn't suffer fools well, and I never realized that that wasn't a compliment. So, and that I know I've had people say, well, everybody has spiritual gifts, but mercy isn't one of yours. And so, yeah, it was one of those things I tell people, just be glad you know me now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess I'd have to kind of agree with you a little bit because I, before my stroke, I had no patience.
Yeah,
Um,
none.
my first wife always hated when I said that. I don't like incompetence.
Hmm.
Now I've gotten patience, so I,
Yes.
I do better myself. When you hear this phrase identity shift, what does it mean to you now?
I really, I've been thinking about this question because I'm not sure so much I had an identity. I'm trying to separate identity from personality. Um,
Oh, good point.
so my personality definitely changed, but I guess in a lot of ways, so did my identity because I went from a able-bodied person to someone with some physical disabilities. So I got out of, and I know I'm privileged, I am white, I am middle class, but I am now part of a marginalized demographic being physically disabled. So, yes, I guess my identity has changed, but I think my personality is more shifted than anything else.
Hmm. Remind our listeners, your stroke was what, 17 years ago, right?
17 years ago.
Okay.
And
Um,
it was a product of a rare genetic disorder. So I was 40 and not in
okay.
perfect health.
Wow. I think there's a moment that we all go through as stroke survivors, and I say stroke warrior mostly because
Mhm.
we make a choice to be a warrior instead of just a survivor. Um, was there a moment when you realized you were no longer uh, trying to become the old you, but were beginning to enhance and embrace the new you?
Yeah, I believe so. I think there was a point where people started noticing a difference, and I was happy they could notice a difference. And then I had a fallout with a friend who said, you're acting like the old Kelly. And it crushed me. Like literally, I went to my brother and my sister-in-law and my family. I said, am I acting the way I used to act? They all said no, but I couldn't believe how hurtful saying you're acting like the old Kelly was. And again, that's in personality and the lack of patience and the having to be right. So, kind of that.
Did I know after going through something like that, there's a lot of inner thoughts and inner um, evaluation. Did that realization at the time bring you freedom, grief, or a little of both?
I think it's a roller coaster. I think the whole thing about the progress after stroke is to remind yourself that it is a process. There are going to be good days and bad days. Like for the majority, it's freedom for me, but then something will happen where I can't get into a building or they take the ramp away, it's too steep, and I grieve a little. I'm going to be a grandmother for the first time this December,
God
and
bless.
I thank you. And I really had to kind of come to terms with the fact since I can't really not walk very well. I don't have use of my left arm at all. I'm not going to be a normal grandma. I can't pick a crying baby up. I can't walk a toddler around a store. I can't put a 3-year-old in a car seat. And that was grieving and that took some time to kind of work through. But I knew it was just part of the ride.
When we go through that, um, a lot of us weren't told about that mental health anguish, that anxiety we go through, realizing that, oh, I can't lift this, I can't cook like I used to, I can't. How do you get through that in your eyes, or how did you? And what can we tell new survivors that they should know that they don't?
Just be aware that you are going to go through some anxiety and depression. It is okay. You have a brain injury. I get through it by medication and therapy, and I'm not ashamed to say I take anti-anxiety medicine, I take anti-depression medicine, and it's okay because it stables things out so that I can live my life. I see it as no different than my cane or my wheelchair. It's an aid to help me get through the day and help me keep, I don't want to say through the day, it helps me keep my mind on what's real and what's important and not spiral into these rabbit hole black holes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot of it's I'll talk about myself. So I think I struggled with acceptance, because I thought acceptance was giving up. How would you explain the difference now?
I don't think acceptance is giving up. Because I think what happens is that people look at a wheelchair or they look at a cane and say, if I use that, then I'm accepting that I won't walk again, or I'm accepting I can't do it. No, you are adapting to where you are in this moment. There's no reason to tell you that you may not ever get better. You might. I'm 17 years out and I improve in little ways every single day. I'm not back to what the world labels as normal, but I still see a strength and an improvement. And I don't consider if using my wheelchair or my cane allows me to go and do things with my friends and family, that's not accepting I'm disabled. That is adapting to my current situation.
You've made the choice to be a warrior, not just a survivor. You,
Correct.
you yeah, you really um, show that. What a lot of us have false expectations because of lack of information, lack of
Mhm.
knowledge. Um, what expectations of yourself did you eventually have to release?
The biggest one, and I hear this from so many survivors, is the doctors that say you're going to make all your progress in the first 6 months or a year. And
Right.
almost all of us heard you'll make progress in the first, as will be better at the end of 6 months to a year. Not realizing that that's not what it meant. It meant your biggest steps would happen during that first 12 months, but that you would still gain any step forward is a step forward. And I think that was the hardest for me. So I hit 6 months and I'm like, I know, but I mean, I was still wheelchair. I was still using a wheelchair full time at that point. And I thought at six, and it depressed me because I thought, oh, well, they've told me I won't make any more gains past here, which is not true. I know they're just covering their own liabilities, but um, that expectation I had to let go of, that this was life now and it's okay. How do we adapt to it?
And I'm one of the things that impresses and I like talking to you about is because I practice the same thing. It's those little victories every day that
Yes.
add up. I think a lot of us don't recognize, well, and the littlest things. I finally got to the point, maybe three, actually, it's more like 5, 6 years, where I started to do the things I used to do that I couldn't do because of the
Right.
stroke. And all of a sudden, I was able to do them similar to what I was before. Maybe not as well, maybe a lot
Right.
slower, but
Right.
you get to that point. One of the things I like about talking to you is your faith. How did
Yes.
that help you through the processes?
So just to kind of remind the listeners, I'm an interfaith chaplain. So I'm not a specific religion, but I do believe in God. For me, it was just knowing that I survived for a reason. Even on my worst days, I I survived, and I shouldn't have. I know that they called my family in and told them to prepare for the worst. And I'm other than my arm and leg, I'm fine. And I have to constantly remind myself. I just lost a very dear friend, my age, like a year ago, from a massive stroke. She had a stroke
Oh,
and never woke up. And I keep thinking that could have been me. That should have been
yeah.
me. So my faith is I'm on this planet for a reason, and I may not know it on this side of eternity, but something I have done or will do is going to affect this world or somebody in this world in a positive way.
Do you believe accepting that position in your life or that belief improved your recovery?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because
Okay.
it kept me from sitting in a dark room, feeling sorry for myself and mad at the world, which I've also seen people do. Like, I'm not moving from this chair until I'm all better. Well, you're never going to get better if you don't move from that chair.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly. Um, After those initial milestones, I think, um, those initial milestones are reached that they tell us it's good as it's going to get 6 months to a year, all of a sudden, um, recovery becomes, I'm going to call it quieter.
yeah.
And there comes some point, and for me, it was 6.5 years when I
Mhm.
found a good physical therapist that 6 months later, I was off my cane.
Nice.
He put me on an AFO that I never was told about for 6.5 years.
Wow.
He put me on that, and 6 months later, I was off the cane. So, I mean, they become quieter. I That quietness creates a little self-reflection, I think.
Yes.
Um, how did you go through that process that maybe somebody else can learn from?
The number one thing I can say is find yourself a good support group, find yourself talking or listening, like here with the Stroke Warrior Radio, to other survivors. And the great thing about a support group is they usually only meet monthly. And we have people come in and they're speaking better or they're walking better, and we all rejoice.
Yes.
They don't see it, but we haven't seen them in 4 weeks. We see it. And that's my support groups have absolutely saved my life and my mental health. Just you want your friends and family to understand, but you don't want them to. They can't. So it's surrounding yourself with people who know what you're going through and keeping positive. You can surround yourself with people that can just bitch and moan the whole time. You don't want that. You want to find people
Yeah.
that celebrate the fact they survived and celebrate I found this great physical therapist. I found this great, uh, acupuncture. Share those resources. I think the other thing for me was don't be afraid to try everything.
Me
And
too.
I just, if they say, hey, we've got this research program, I'm like, sure, I'm in. I don't even care what it is. I'm going to try everything. Because the worst that's going to happen is it barely works or doesn't work at all. But what if it does? So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was always one of those that I've all those foo-foo treatments
Hmm.
wasn't interested in, but I tried
Yeah.
acupuncture, and three
Hmm.
months after doing it, I got the use of my left arm back, which
Wow.
is, awful, remarkable, and people
Yes.
shouldn't count on it. But
Right.
for me, it worked,
It
you
worked for
know.
you because you were willing to try,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
to me, there's 12 or 13 different treatments. There's not just
Oh no.
physical
Yeah.
therapy and
No.
occupational, there's mental health, there's
Right.
spiritual, there's acupuncture, there's
Right.
chiropractic. There's a lot of things.
I didn't realize the importance of recreational therapy until my stroke, because especially until I moved to Utah, because I never was a sporty outdoor person to start with. And then of course when I had my stroke, I'm like, well, there's nothing you can do now. Half your body doesn't move. I rode my bike 8 miles yesterday. My adaptive recumbent bike, 8 miles through the mountain trails in Park City,
That's
Utah yesterday.
fantastic.
I never could do that before my stroke. So to me, the irony was hysterical.
That's very cool. Um, how has, well, talking about support groups, you and I talked about this before, and I'm going a little off what we were going to discuss, but one of the things we talked about before was support groups can be fantastic, but some support groups can be so detrimental.
Yes, and
Um,
you need to choose
how do
wisely.
you suggest? We talked about how to select support groups, and
Right.
there's so many out there. And with
No,
Zoom and all of that, take the time to go to a bunch of them and
that's what I was
find the
about to
great
say.
ones.
You've got to go to a bunch. It's like if you ever gone hopping or church shopping, you go in and you kind of almost get an immediate feel of the vibe of the place and the people there. It's the exact same with support groups. You're going to know immediately what the vibe is and if this vibe is good for you or if it's not good for you. So, but don't be afraid. I mean, I think I'm a member of like four different groups
Yeah,
and they're all still in Georgia, but they're on Zoom, so I still go to them, 1,800 miles away, but
yeah,
because they have that vibe that I need.
yeah. And I think part of that vibe that, for me anyway, was being familiar with 12-step programs
Hmm.
is you're paying attention to the new members that come in to
Yes.
remind you where you came from.
Yes.
And I think stroke support doesn't mention that enough.
I,
Um,
I, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think people need to be told from stroke survivors that there is life after stroke and it's good life. I remember when they sent a peer visitor to me when I was in outpatient. They had this peer visitor program. I'm 40 years old. I just had a massive stroke. I can't walk. I can't move my arm. I can't have my kids live with me. And they send a 21-year-old who was in a car accident and had some brain injury, who had never lost her limbs, never lost her speech. She had some short-term memory program. I don't downplay her situation, but it had zero to do with me. I
yes,
could not relate to her on any way, shape, or form. And so it put a bitter taste in my mouth. And it took me almost 2 years to go back to any kind of support, to go to a support group because of that one interaction. And I
yeah,
regret that I let that happen. I wish I had started earlier.
that's a great point because you can get so discouraged
Yeah.
that you stop, uh, and that's going to destroy your recovery program in itself.
Yes, it is.
What accomplishments today have nothing to do with physical recovery for you?
I graduated with a master's of divinity. I went to seminary at 50. So
Nice.
that was, to me, that was not oh, you're so inspirational. No, I'm just a student. And so it's kind of that. I try to do a lot of, I just love learning. And yes, it can be a little more difficult when you have a brain injury because sometimes I have to catch myself because I get fatigued. All of a sudden, the words that I'm reading and the things I'm hearing don't really mesh. I don't like I've read that sentence 4 times and it still hasn't gone in. But that's just my cue to step aside, take a break. It's okay to go watch some TV, read a book, and come back to it. But the learning, I think, keeps your mind, you got to keep your mind busy and just as much as your body.
Yeah, yeah. Your faith changed through your adversity. Did your stroke, you mentioned, that the fact that you're still alive. What other things do you think your stroke changed your relationship with your God?
That is such a good question because I was raised in such a um, oppressive, fear-based religion that when I came out of my stroke and started kind of having time to reflect and time to read on my own, then going to seminary, and I realized that so much of what I'd been taught wasn't true. It was not in the Bible, or it was in the Bible, but it was twisted. I went through a little period of being angry. I will have to say, I think I really did have kind of this crisis of faith of, if all this is a lie, then what's going on? But then I had to go back and go, no, the Bible says that in my Father's house there are many rooms. I just left one room and I'm gone to another, and it just
Oh, I
looks
like
different,
that.
So I just got out of the basement, So,
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I call them seasons.
yes,
We
definitely.
go through seasons of recovery. Um, where were those seasons where your faith was challenged? What were some of those, and how, I don't know, how should I have probably looked at it differently?
That's a very good question. I would say for me personally, going to
Good.
seminary, learning um, for myself, not just counting on other people to say this is how you should think was a big thing. And that bled right into my stroke recovery because I felt the same way. I'm like, okay, the doctors have lied. I will get better after a year. I need to research this. I need to find out what my next steps are. And so when my faith started shaking, I needed to go and say, okay, how I need to look this up. I need to find like Mr. Rogers always said, I need to find the helpers. I need to find the good people. So I got off social media. I stopped watching the news, and I had to let my faith kind of rebuild itself from the ground up by focusing on not everybody's awful, not everybody lies. There are good things.
And that's beautiful because it's not um, I lost my train of thought. There goes my brain, stroke brain. Sorry about that.
It's quite all
Um,
right. I understand.
yeah. How has that created the focus for you and made you a better healthcare chaplain? I've never heard healthcare chaplain.
I would say that it has made me more, I hate the word tolerant. It makes me more accepting. Like if I do a lot of hospice. If I go into hospice and you're, laying there, you're at end of life and you're Muslim or you're Jewish or Buddhist or Christian, whatever, I'm not there to change your faith. I am there to be there for you as you walked into the end of your faith. And I think before my stroke, I was very much, it's, you have to do it this way. If you don't, if you aren't this type of Christian, then you're going to hell. And I regret some of the things I did and said to people in that mindset that I don't have now.
Do you, one of the things that opened me up is all of this faith in God is not necessarily a God. It can be a relationship with people.
Yeah.
That's my spirituality, the relationships we build with people. Do you believe that as well, or
I do. I can sum my theology up in very simply. It's up to us, all of us, I don't care what your religion is or isn't, to bring heaven to earth. We're not supposed to be sitting around twiddling our thumbs, complaining about how awful life is, and I just can't wait to die so I can go to some heaven and fly around with a harp. Bring heaven to earth. Make earth what you want heaven to be. And you're right, that's going to be connections, it's going to be relationships, it's going to be understanding, it's going to be
Knowledge.
acceptance. And knowledge is the big
Yeah.
one. Real, not
Yeah.
disinformation, thinking self-thought, think for yourself. And if you find yourself watching the news and it makes you angry, turn it off. Don't let it bait you into being something you're really not.
Yeah. Exactly. What does joy look like to you today?
Mm. Waking up in the morning and still having running water and indoor plumbing, and that's sets my whole day. It really does, because I had to stop. I started thinking about this a few years ago because had to stop looking at my day with, oh, I can't do this and I can't do this and it's raining, it's whatever. And I had to start thinking, you woke up in a bed, a nice bed with a roof over your head, air conditioning, and you walked into another room and you had indoor plumbing, you had clean running water. You have more than 95% of this country does. So be joyful. And joy to me is, and I'm sure you've heard this before, joy is internal while happiness is external. Um,
Oh, no,
my
I haven't.
joy does not is not connected to me being happy. Like I really am terrible at finances and it causes a problem. I'm not happy with that, but I'm still a joyful person. I know I still have all my basic needs met. So
Okay.
on
I see
the
what you're saying.
internal.
You
Yeah.
know, I think one of the things too that I found anyway for myself was I had to get to the point where I simplified things because
Yes.
I was overcomplicating and overthinking.
Yes. No patience for anybody, including myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah, that was me, that's for sure. One of the things that's funny too, it's off topic, but
sure.
um, I used to get so angry. Oh my God, I had a temper you wouldn't believe. My temper is practically gone.
Nice.
I can't believe it. I'm a New Jersey street kid, so I know how to fight in the street and that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, Nothing, no fights, no arguments. You know, uh, I've learned a lot.
Exactly. And I think staring death face to face, you start realizing what's important. And there's
Yes,
just sometimes, yes, I may not agree, or yes, you've made me mad, but it's not a hill I'm willing to die on because I've almost died. And I know that life is short and it's precious, and I don't know your issues. Like I have so many friends, stroke survivors that are invisibly disabled because their
right.
bodies work, but they can't remember where they parked in a shopping cart, and then they go out in the parking lot, they have panic attacks. I don't know your issues. It is not fair for me to get mad and judge you when it's hurt people that hurt people. And so I don't know your issues. And then I just need to back up and worry about mine.
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes ordinary moments become a lot more meaningful for us
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that's another thing, we have to focus or at least recognize those moments when they become meaningful. Be
Yes.
open to it being meaningful,
Right.
meaningful.
Right.
I think a lot of that brings to relationships and advocacy. I mean, how did stroke change your relationships?
It it definitely whittled them down. I went from somebody
Yes,
who had hundreds of friends, or so I thought, to the 10 that I had that actually came to the hospital, that actually came to the rehab center. So it definitely made me realize the difference between having acquaintances in my life and friends. What really changed was I realized the people who were my friends were the ones who didn't like me for what I could do, but liked me because of who I am. Because all of a sudden, when there are things I couldn't do for people, those people just disappeared. And it hurt at
Yeah.
first, but now I'm so grateful because now I'm strong enough as I meet new people, they're accepting me for who I am because they didn't know me. They didn't know I could do X, Y, and Z before. They're not looking for somebody to do something for them. And if I can do something for them, I'm pretty good on the computer. I'm happy to, but I know that's not why they're my friends. So it definitely
Yeah.
it definitely tells you to rearrange your priorities of what a friend is and what an acquaintance is.
Yeah, and that can be a real difficult time too, because
It
that
can.
can, losing those friends and that anger can cause you to not even focus on the good things. So
And the
what?
strange thing about that is that that also comes in waves. Like, yes, it hurt there at the very beginning. And then I, got out of the hospital and started living life. And then I moved from Georgia, where I've been my entire life, to Utah and went through a second, you know, curing out process. The number of people that just I never hear from. I just lost contact. They don't ever reach out. That hurt a lot
Yeah,
because I I thought you liked me for who I am because I really can't do, but I was doing stuff for them. And then once I was gone, they needed to find somebody new to fill that gap. And I just was, I hate to say forgotten, but just done. And that was my worth was tied up in that. And that's not what I want. I want people who see my worth for what it is, not what I do. So it may happen two or three times over your recovery where you have this
yeah,
kind of culling out of friends. But like you said, it's seasonal. We don't, our best friend from first grade is probably still not our best friend today. It's
yeah,
all seasons.
yep. They in the hospital and inpatient rehab or outpatient rehab, they don't tell us what to expect, I think, as much as we would like. At least
Right.
learning this 10 and a half years later, there's all kinds of stuff I wish I would have known. What do you wish healthcare providers better understood about long-term recovery?
Again, we can do good things. We can have a life. There's two things that irritate me so much about um, healthcare when you first have a stroke. One is they tell you after a year you're done, however far you
Yeah,
get. We've already talked about that. The other one is they handed me this packet that looked like a freaking phone book. And the top three pages was how not to have another stroke. You're at big risk now. You need to make, and it made me so angry because I said, you're blaming me. You are blaming me for having a stroke. And if that's the way you're looking at me as a patient that kind of deserved this because you're blaming me, then I don't want to be part of this. And so I think again that goes back to support groups and finding good doctors and good physical therapists that can say, I don't care if you really did. No, I have a friend that just had a stroke not last year, and because he stopped taking his blood pressure medicine. I don't blame him for that. He
right.
still had a stroke. He's learned, but to look at him and say, "Oh, you're going to have another stroke if you don't get your act together," may be true, but it's certainly not kind, and it's certainly victim blaming.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we don't realize is we put the medical profession on a pedestal,
Yes, we do.
and that they're not the solve all. I think, and it took me years to learn this. I'm
Yes,
the captain of my own team. I can
exactly.
interview new doctors. I
And you
can
can fire
fire
old
my,
ones. Yep.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I
You
mean,
are in charge.
yeah, yeah, you have to, and if you go to a physical therapist that doesn't sit down and say, what do you want to do? How do you
Right.
want to do it? When do you want to do it? Set some goals and get to know you. Go find
Right.
another physical
Right.
therapist,
Or
you
if you
know.
come into a negative vibe with a doctor or a therapist of any kind, just
Yeah.
you are free market. So yes, I understand that insurance has, some grips on you, but I'm on Medicare and Medicaid, and I can still find different doctors if I need it.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. There's always a way to make
there's
things
always a
better.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. What part of you became stronger than you ever imagined?
Um, Stronger than I ever imagined. I think just my ability to see the good in a day, see the good in people, see that life is good, you know, even when life is bad, life is good. It's nice to be alive. And I think that's what I thought, because I was always, like you said, short with people, had a temper, and thought that that was the right thing to do. Like I was being successful. Now, like if I can go outside and sit on my front porch because I have to go down a couple of steps, which is really hard. That's I'm so grateful. It's so good, which I never would have thought ever that I would be this
Yeah,
calm. I think the word I'm looking for is calm. I don't think I ever thought I'd be this calm.
good word. I like that word. Yeah, very good one. I often say, and probably people are sick of hearing it, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my
Yeah,
life, but it's become the most rewarding.
absolutely. I tell people that I wouldn't change it if I could because
Yeah.
all the good things that have happened to me, despite the disability, all the wonderful people I've met that I wouldn't have had I not had a stroke, I would not go back and change it. I would. So and I did not believe that the first year. I really didn't. You know, the first year, I had a uh, no re living will that said,
Yeah.
don't do anything life-saving and my family decided to go ahead and stent and try to get these carotids open so I could keep going. And I remember being mad at them. I remember telling them, you weren't supposed to do anything. They told you I was gone or probably brain, heading that way. My living will said, don't do any heroics. And they're like, no, that's not what a living will meant, which I get now. But I do remember being mad. I do remember saying, why did you let me live like this? So it's a process.
Yeah, it is. And I think stroke warriors and
Mhm.
TBI or MS or the other brain injuries, um, recovery becomes a lot better with more purpose.
Yes.
Once you,
Yes.
yeah, once you develop
Use.
some kind of purpose,
Yes.
um, that becomes a real catalyst to change.
Yes. It really does. And it can be volunteering is a huge thing to do. And maybe you can't I think about the food pantry we have here in Salt Lake. I can't sort cans or pick up big boxes, but they constantly need data inputting on the computer. That I can do. And that gives me a purpose. It gives me something to do and not just watch TV all day, which I've been known to do. Um, but it is something that I can do. And I always tell people that, like when I say, okay, I'll do that. And they'll go, well, you don't need to do that. And I'm like, no, please let me, because it's something I can do. I can't help you over here, but I can do this. And people are really good about it.
Yeah, yeah. My first job after I was a contractor before, my first job after my stroke was a few years in. But I went to Kohl's,
Hmm.
part-time job, because I was an SSI and needed the job. But they were very understanding with the fact that I can't go and stand in full clothes
Right.
with a cane or a walker.
Yeah.
I was the only one allowed to have a stool at the cashier's register.
Very
And that's
good.
what I did. That was my job part-time. I was a cashier. And
Fun.
I loved it. I loved the people
It got you
contact. I
out of
loved,
the house. It got you
yeah.
meeting people. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it was a great purpose at the time. I mean, yeah, I didn't do much more than the part-time job, but you know,
Still, that's huge.
eventually it became more. 7
Yeah.
years I'm working full time, and I've been
Nice.
doing that for 4 years. So plus the radio. Double
And
time.
it may not, I mean, I'm 17 years out. I don't have a paying job. The things I do as a chaplain, I do on a volunteer basis because I had a long-term disability policy in addition to SSA. And if I work a day, if I get paid for anything, they'll pull that. And I don't want, that's too much of my income. But, find a support group, make a garden, um, even whatever your faith is, even if your faith is no faith, find like-minded people. Don't get yourself in an echo chamber, but at least find people that you can talk to and you feel like you're safe talking to them.
Yeah, very good point. What would you have to say to someone who had a stroke yesterday?
Hang in there. It does get better. You will find a good life.
What
It's
message
going to
would you
be
give?
bumpy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's going to be bumpy, but it'll be okay.
You're gonna cry, you're gonna laugh, you're
Yeah.
gonna be sad, you're gonna
Yeah.
go through all the emotions.
Yeah.
What message would you have for caregivers?
Oh, this one's tough. Be patient. I know you think that that survivor can do something and it's just not doing it, but there is so much more. I used to get so upset with my family because they didn't recognize how scared I was and how anxious I was because I knew if I fell, I could hurt myself and I didn't want that. So I wouldn't do everything they thought I could do because I had so much anxiety and fear that nobody recognized. And I think my biggest thing for caregivers is listen, just take a deep breath. They'll be fine. If they're really just sitting there refusing to do anything, then call the doctor, see a
Yeah,
neuropsychologist. But you pushing and you saying you don't need that cane or you don't need, pick it up with your left hand does not help at all.
no,
It just
n-
doesn't.
people with aphasia finishing their sentences
Yeah,
does
let them
not
speak.
help.
Right.
That's, I think one of the things that we forget, and it's probably something we've learned in our recovery, is the importance of communication. Sit down and talk about the impossible things.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's you're going to go through some anger, frustration, whatever, but you need to talk about them. I
Yes.
mean, as a survivor, you need to tell them, don't finish my sentences.
Right.
Don't grab me all of a sudden. I'll learn it. Uh,
Right.
there's a learning curve for everybody. How to listen? We're running out of time here real quick. That's
That's
amazing.
great.
How can listeners connect with you, and are you open to that?
Absolutely. I can I give my email address?
Of course, if you want to.
So my email is Kelly, Kelly, M as in monkey, C as in cat, 620 at gmail.com. And I'm always available. Do turn my phone. I put my phone in a different room from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So if I don't get back immediately, it's not I'm ignoring you. It's just that I have to have a break from screens.
Okay.
It's just,
And they
yeah,
should contact you for
yeah,
healthcare chaplaincy. How
of
would you
course.
describe why they want to contact
Just
you?
I'm here to be a resource source. I'm here to be a listening ear. I'm here to answer questions. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Kelly C620.
Okay.
Kelly Moore Campbell on Facebook. Friend me, send me a friend request, a DM. I'm here. So
Very cool to be open to that. Thank you very
yeah, no
much.
problem.
Anything else you want to add today?
Yeah, one thing that popped in my mind, we were talking about caregivers. If you're a new survivor, you're going to go home with a whole bunch of exercises that you're probably not going to do. And because it's very different doing it in a PT than it is doing it at home. Because at PT, you've got somebody right there correcting you. Um, when you're doing it at home and you feel like you're doing it wrong, you get frustrated. So try, but don't beat yourself up. And caregivers, if they just won't do it, they won't do it. That's their choice. They're adults. Let them make that decision. Don't hound. The nagging and the hounding is only going to spoil the relationship. They say you can be right or you can be in a relationship. Well, in this case, choose to be in a relationship. You don't have to
Yeah.
be right. So,
And sit down and ask why do like you were talking about before. I was so afraid of that. So many stroke survivors have a stroke within a year. Oh my
yeah.
God, my first year, I was so scared.
Yep.
I was afraid to go to sleep at night.
They absolutely terrify you with that. And mine was a genetic disorder. Like there was literally nothing I could do. And they were still giving me the information going, oh, you're probably going to have another stroke. Your life expectancy is now shortened. You don't know that. You don't even know the disease, the genetic disorder I have. Took
Yeah,
5 years to get correctly diagnosed. So how can you tell me anything about my future? So, I mean, you have to be
yeah,
common sense. Wear your seatbelt, take your medicine, eat good, eat well, but don't be afraid.
exactly. Kelly, thank you for joining us once again. Your story does remind us recovery isn't simply about getting back to who you were. It's about discovering who we can become. You, to our listeners, your story matters. Your recovery is worth fighting for, and you're never alone on this path. Please tell to at least two people about our show on YouTube. Look for us on social media, and or listen to us at strokewarriorradio.com. Thank you, everyone. Catch the wave. That's warriors achieving victories every day.